Part 6 of how Cheryl and Jason Blossom compete to become the Antichrist. So, after we discovered there is a third Blossom, they are no longer the Blossom twins, they were Blossom triplets, we get a flashback to the night Julian Blossom was born. See, Penelope and Clifford, they thought they're just giving birth to a single child. And she's just like, honey, this pushing is unusual, honey. This ain't the type of pushing for one child. So she's giving me very much Rosemary's Baby right now, where the baby, something's wrong with this baby on the inside. Honey, get rid of this baby. And of course, waiting in the delivery room is their disciples of darkness. And Julian is the first child born. Of course, I gotta put my head over it because y'all know how TikTok be punishing me for the least. However, honey, there's more to come. Honey, you got 2 more babies up in there. And the nurse gives their firstborn to the dark occult members. And because y'all know how these stories are, that's one of those stereotypical tropes where, your firstborn has to be given to like that evil person or that evil cult. So there you have it with that. And they take Julian away and he ain't never heard from again. And you know how those naive ass parents, they're like, I thought we were doing the right thing, giving up a baby. And now, Jason and Cheryl are mad because here's what they realize. Now it's just not 2 people competing for a throne, it's 3. So now they're like, damn, I got another motherfucker I gotta take out. And then Julian, he's up to no good because he's like, it's okay, I don't hold it against you, Dad. Bullshit, boy, you got daddy issues from a mile away. And Cheryl's mad because Cheryl's thinking what everybody else is thinking when it comes to a competition. Honey, what about the Destiny? Now he's in on the Destiny? Shit, it was hard enough for me to take down Jason. Remember, he may not have been raised by him, but that's some crimson ass Blossom blood. So he's like, honey, I'm ready to get into the competition and take out Heckle and Jekyll. Now the next day at school, they're taking attendance, and Betty Cooper, half the class is missing. Because shit is always going down in Riverdale. And now Archie's talking to Veronica and Jughead, and you see Jughead's hungry ass eating a cheeseburger on the motherfucker's stairs. Get your cheeseburger out your mouth, nigga. Anyway, Archie's like, maybe we should have believed Betty and stuff like that. And it's like, now you're coming to that conclusion and she's your friend? You should always believe your friend. And once again, Jughead's hungry ass. He's like, what you think, Betty's right? So now that got Jughead's mind percolating. And then Archie gets on Veronica like, maybe you should talk to your best friend and, stuff like that. And it's like, Archie, you're the last one who should be giving anybody friendship advice. When you can't make up your mind and you got these 2 girls fighting over you, like that's the thing to do. But then, as they're having their little Kumbaya festival, Cheryl comes up and like, Veronica, I gotta talk to you. And it's something that Betty did to you. Part 7 of how Cheryl and Jason Blossom competed to become the Antichrist. Okay, so now Cheryl walks up to Archie, Jughead, and Veronica, because, Betty's out there doing her Nancy Drew shit. And they're all like, yes, Cheryl, how may I help you? And Cheryl's like, Veronica, I gotta tell you what Betty's been saying behind your back. Because, Cheryl, she's like a serpent. She likes to sneak in there and get into people's mind. Across town, Betty pulls up in front of Dilton's house, and she sees the cops. And Betty's like, what the fuck is going on? So as she looks further, she sees somebody coming out in handcuffs. Getting carried out of his house in cuffs is Dilton Doily. Now let's do a little flashback. If y'all remember way back in either part 2 or 3, or maybe even 1. These all merged together for me after a while. Cheryl was like, you might want to check with Dilton. He was the last one to see Reggie alive. So Cheryl planted the seed. And as we all know, the cops are on her payroll because they're a part of the dark occult too. And Dilton's parents is just distraught, as any parent would be, and they take his ass off. And meanwhile, back at school, Cheryl and Veronica are just walking around, and pretty much Cheryl's putting into Veronica's head that Betty's not really her friend. She's only her friend so she can keep Archie close because she really wants Archie, her man. And of course, Veronica ain't believing it at first, but the thing is with Cheryl's manipulation, she plants seeds that sprout insecurities, so they will fester eventually. So Cheryl successfully gets into Veronica's head, and then Cheryl leaves to continue spreading her other wickedness. Meanwhile, Ethel, who's back at her house, she keeps on having these, probably like these post-traumatic visions of her running through the forest. And poor Ethel, her mind will just never be the same, because she keeps on having visions of this guy. I mean, who would? And she's just like, it's the same every time I close my eyes. She has visions of the horror that she went through. So Betty stops over after coming from Dilton's house because we saw him get arrested. And she's asking Ethel, I need you to tell me what happened out there so I can help Dilton because this town is falling. Everybody's falling around us. And honey, I got to solve this mystery. And then Ethel tells Betty finally, because I get tired of all that cryptic shit. She was like, look up the order of Abaddon and that'll tell you everything you need to hear at the library. And Betty leaves because Betty's like, honey, thank you for the name. I'm going off to find out about this shit. But as we see, somebody's in her closet. And it's Jason Blossom. He's like, congratulations, Ethel. You rehearsed the lines perfectly. So Ethel's in on it. And Ethel hates lying to Betty. So she's like, what did I tell Betty? What is she going to find out? And Jason's like, honey, the truth. For the most part. Then, now Betty gets to the library and finds the book. And finds out her parents are in it. Part 8 of how Cheryl and Jason are trying to become the Antichrist. So, Betty discovers that her parents are also members of this like dark occult. Nonetheless, since my parents are a part of this, I know if I go to them, they won't tell me nothing because you know parents is good for that cryptic shit. That should be so annoying. However, she goes up to the librarian to see if they got more books on this dark occult. His ass is telling her to shh. Boy, I'm trying to get information from you. Ain't that your job? She's interrupted by Cheryl and Jason Blossom's brother, Julian, who's like, honey, I see some prey and I'm going to pray on her. So what happens is, I'm going to speed this part up. Julian teams up with Betty. He's like, honey, I can help you discover the secrets around this town about this occult. And she's like, why do you want to help me? And she's like, honey, I want to take down Cheryl and Jason Blossom because they had a good life and I didn't have shit. Which triggers us to go to the flashbacks of Cheryl and Jason as a kid, compared to what he had to go through as a kid. They had nice family meals. Honey, he had a dinner for one. They had Christmases. How appropriate right now. He had dark occult meetings in the middle of the New England woods with broken-ass trees. They had proper education, whether it's public or not. He doesn't have school, so instead of learning history, he's sitting with people who is history, because this nigga dead. So as we know, his vengeance is rightfully so. And you know, Betty's just talking to him like, I can't believe it. But at the end of the day, trust no Blossom. So across town, Cheryl and Jason are having a brunch, and Cheryl's like, we need to call a truce between me and you because Julian, our older brother, he's a much bigger problem. And Jason, his cocky ass, he's like, there's no shame in throwing in the towel. Cheryl's like, bitch, it makes no sense for us to try to go against him when he's been raised around him. He's a problem. And you know, Cheryl's just like, don't you find it odd that mom and dad never mentioned him? And I'm like, hello, somebody. But you know, Jason ain't really paying attention to her because he's after the throne. And Cheryl's like, honey, I have a feeling bad things are going to start happening. Meanwhile, this guy ends up losing control of his car while he's driving past and ends up almost hitting them, making them pancakes on the sidewalk. Bad omens. And honey, they make it out of the way by the skin of their ginger locks. We need to call a truce. And he's like, fine, a truce. And she's like, good, and gives him a kiss on the cheeks. That's that weird twin says shit. So meanwhile, across town, here go Jughead again with his hamburger eating ass. And Ethel comes out of nowhere and she's like, Jughead, I need your help. Now, mind you, only Betty knows so far that Ethel's been found. So Jughead's like, I'm just now seeing her. And he's trying to console her. He's like, it's gonna be all right. What do you need help with? Where were? And she's all panicky. She's like, let me show you, Jughead. It's hard. She's like, I need to take you to the woods. Part 9 of how Cheryl and Jason Blossom competed to become the Antichrist. Okay, so now we're at the point where Ethel is manipulating Jughead to come into the woods because she's all distraught. So now, Betty and Julian are coming home from the library because they're like, we need to put our minds together, discover more things about the cult for one, and then Julian's like, and we need to discover how to take down my 2 siblings because they took away my whole life. And as you see, he made himself completely at home. But I'm like, Betty, if you know he's a Blossom, why are you trusting him so easy? But they realize that, honey, they're going to figure this all out, but they might need to start warning people around town before more people start disappearing. So, you know, Betty's like, honey, I need to warn Archie and them. And she pulls up to his house and look, and she sees Veronica's car and she's like, what's going on here? It's like, girl, put 2 and 2 together. And she's acting all shocked. But if y'all remember in earlier parts, when Cheryl took Veronica to the side saying that Betty's trying to get with Archie, honey, so Veronica is already brainwashing, like, honey, Betty is not going to get my man before me. So this is pretty much why Veronica's here. And honey, she opens Pandora's box and she got more than what she bargained for. And she sees Archie and Veronica doing a beat, skeet, and boogie. And she's all devastated. And I'm like, girl, at what point do we get tired, Betty? And then Veronica stops kissing Archie because she feels like she senses something. Something's not right. The energy change. And she's like, is everything all right? And Archie's like, it's perfect. But we see in Archie's mind, he's saying all praises to Abaddon, which is the cult, the dark cult. And I don't know if I'm saying that right. Just bear with me. So then we go over to Dilton, who's in his prison cell. And y'all see where he's at. Let me cover that back up because y'all know TikTok loves to shadow ban me. Hello, somebody. So Betty's crying in Julian's arms. And I'm like, Betty, really? Come on. Like, you just met him and he's a Blossom. And everybody knows Blossoms can't be trusted. But you do you. So back in the woods, Ethel is leading Jughead to the place where she was kidnapped because, you know, she was all distraught. And then as he's following Ethel deeper into the woods, he noticed Ethel's like, follow me, Jughead, it'll be wonderful. And he's like, hold up, wait a minute. How did your mood just change that fast? You were distraught and you needed help. And all of a sudden you're telling me wherever you're leading me to that caused you the trauma is going to be wonderful? Bitches ain't shit. And he's like, Ethel, you're talking kind of crazy. What's going on? And she's like, honey, I was, but not anymore. So I want to show you what's in this cave of where I've been. And you can see Jughead's a little bit more, he's like, what's about to go down? And he looks really like Cold Sprouse in this one. And he's like, it's dark, I can't really see in here. And as you see, her face shape shifted into Cheryl's because there's mind control everywhere. And she brings them into the cave and he finally sees it. Part 10 of how Cheryl and Jason compete to become the Antichrist. So Ethel brings Jughead in there under the disguise of this cave that she needs help, right? And Jughead's like, bitch, why the fuck would you bring me here? Because, honey, what's the use of two crazy hoes? And Ethel's like, I brought you here. And she pulls out a dagger because she needs to be a sacrifice. And she wants Jughead to kill her. Honey, hold up. You said you needed help, not this type of help. And she's like, bitch, I did not stutter. I said you're going to kill me. And Jughead's like, I done got myself into some shit. This is why you don't be nosy. If somebody is distraught or need help, honey, that's what the ambulance is for. That's what 911 is called for. Honey, I am not Captain Save-A-Ho. So meanwhile, in the Blossom Mansion, Cheryl and Jason are plotting against Julian because he's a problem. And Cheryl is just swimming in the pool while Jason is pulled aside. And she's like, honey, we got to think outside the box. We cannot do no basic shit when it comes to taking down Julian. And Jason's reckless as hell, so he was like, honey, let's get an axe and just off with the motherfucker's head. And then Cheryl's like, honey, we can't be that messy yet. Because she's like, honey, do you know how long we would be grounded for if mom and dad found out we murdered him? Meanwhile, I think this might be the hot tub motor starts to unwind underneath Cheryl. Because remember, ever since Julian arrived, these freak accidents have been happening to the Blossom twins. Until all of a sudden she feels this force and it's yanking her underneath the water. These freak accidents. And Cheryl's panicking. And Jason loves his sister a little more than the average twin. However, he jumps in. He's like, I got you, ho. And he gets Cheryl because remember, even in Riverdale, the TV show, Jason was an excellent swimmer. And he brings her up. Meanwhile, back in the cave, Jughead's like, Ethel, what have you gotten yourself into? And Ethel's like, I need you to do this to me. So clearly this cult doctor or that cult statue that they see in that cave is like brainwashing her and telling her what to do. And Ethel, she's in distress. She's like, it's what they want. And Jughead's like, they who? And Ethel's like, bitch, you already know who. Because Ethel's like, bitch, you already know who. Abaddon, he has 3 tongues, which I think is symbolism for Jason, Cheryl, and Julian. Or a mockery on the Holy Spirit, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So, either or. And Ethel was like, honey, I'm already doomed. And Jughead's like, bitch, let's go. But it is too late. Ethel forces the knife into herself. And Jughead's in shock. He's like, did this really just happen? And now I'm an assessor. And he's running like any smart bitch would. And look who he happens to run into as he's leaving the cave. Thing 1 and thing 2. And Jason's like, about that favor now. Because you owe me one. Nigga, you owe me one. So meanwhile, across town, we have Betty in a car crying with Julian because she saw Veronica kissing Archie in his house. But we all know Archie's under control of the cult. So I'm like, Betty, you and Veronica toss Archie back and forth like a redheaded volleyball. So what are you crying for? Archie is legitly a toy in y'all never-ending triangle. So Julian, to his best capabilities, trying to reassure Betty that they just need to defeat the Blossoms. And pretty much, Betty's like, we need to talk to Dilton. And Dilton's, remember, he got arrested and framed. So he's at the police station. So Betty's like, let's go to the police station. And Betty's like, honey, this is where we're bringing this all to an end. And of course, in the Riverdale world, Betty walks into the police station. She's like, Sheriff, I need to talk to Dilton. And he's like, totally cool. If y'all remember, this sheriff is a part of the cult that Cheryl and Jason Blossom's parents are a part of. So he's all in on it. So he's like, okay. And pretty much the sheriff is telling Betty, like, I hope seeing a friendly face like yours, Betty, will make Dilton like a lot more cooperative. Bitch, I know what I'm trying to say. Because he hasn't been saying shit. However, unfortunately, as soon as they get there, they see he's playing Heads Up 7-Up. And Betty knows the Blossoms are behind this. And Betty runs out to the parking lot to cry. And, Julian's just going to reassure her. He's like, you know what? See, we need to take down the Blossom. The only way to truly take down the Blossom is to beat them at their own game and go as dark as they're willing to go. And Julian's like, honey, you'll need to get your hands. You're so dirty. And Jughead interrupts Betty and Julian, and he comes walking over there out of the woods still with the blood on his shoulder. And I'm like, you're walking into the police station's parking lot with blood on your shoulder that belongs to a girl that's been missing? Very smart. And Jughead's like, Betty, I gotta tell you a secret that you were not supposed to know. And Julian knows it's bad, and he reveals who Julian really is. Betty is not playing. She slaps the fuck. Okay, part 12 in the finale of Blossom 666, how Cheryl and Jason became the Antichrist. Or began to. So once Betty found out who Julian really was, which is a Blossom, after Jughead snitched, she slapped him so hard, his children had to put ice on their cheek. But see, now Julian's mad because he knows Cheryl and Jason are behind snitching on him and telling Betty who he was. So now we go back to the Blossom Manor and all hell is about to break loose. And Cheryl and Jason Blossom are waiting for their third, the triplet, Julian Blossom, to arrive home. And he comes up in there, he's like, you hoes told Betty the truth of what we're competing for. And he's like, all I want to know is which one of y'all told her I was going to be the Antichrist, or did you tell her that I already was? And y'all know how Cheryl is. If y'all not with her, you're against her. So she was like, honey, you already know the answer to that, so what is you asking a question for? And then she hits his ass with a Uno reverse, and she's like, honey, it's time to stuff this turkey. And then she gets to slicing and dicing. And while they're doing all that sibling bonding, he's like, but I'm your brother. How can you guys stab me? And it's like, you do realize you three are competing for the eternal flame of hell to be the ruler as the Antichrist, and you're surprised that your siblings would stab you when. And you know Jason's sociopathic ass, he's like, first of all, me and Cheryl grew up together. She's my sister, I'm her brother. We don't really know you, so there ain't no love lost. And he just gets to off with his head. He goes all headless horseman on his ass. Bitch, you are nothing to us. In the words of Pretty Little Liars, two can only keep a secret if one of us is dead. And that's you, Julian. And now Cheryl's worried about, she's talking about mom and dad are going to be so mad at us. Bitch. And Jason's like, at the end of the day, siblings are not, honey. We all can't become the Antichrist. Honey, it's a numbers game. And if he really was the Antichrist, we wouldn't have been able to kill him. And Cheryl's like, of course not. While she's gripping her knife. And Jason's like, I'm glad you see it my way. While he's gripping his knife. Because, you know, the adrenaline's running high. They just killed their brother. And as they stare each other down, across town, Betty and Jughead are sitting in Pop's chocolate shop. You know when you had a hard day and you can't really say anything? You just have to exist in that moment like, bitch, I am broken down and tired. However, a strange man is watching them from afar, and that's never good in Riverdale. And they're just looking at each other like, what now? And back at the Blossom Manor, there's two knives sitting on the table, and Cheryl's like, honey, this changes nothing, you realize. Honey, this competition between the two of us, bitch, is still underway. So their competition is back on. But in the morgue, something begins to rise, and blood begins to pool. And something rises from the dead.